In the days of Spider-Man 3, X-Men The Last Stand, Ghost Rider, The Punisher, and even Fox's Fantastic Four, Marvel Studios were a breath of fresh air because they treated their properties with the reverence the fans had always wanted, but that Hollywood up until then had refused to deliver. Fast forward to today, and Marvel Studios has become what they were created to oppose. This video is sponsored by Fume. When Marvel Studios was formed nigh on 2 decades ago, the promise to the fans was that it would treat its own source material right, and with the respect it deserved, unlike what was being done over at Sony, Fox, and Lionsgate at the time. But today, having completed their own Citizen Kane arc, Marvel Studios has become everything those studios were, adopting the habit of adapting their properties with flagrant disrespect. We're about to take a deep dive into that, but that's the thing with habits in general. Some habits are harmless, others not so much, and Fume makes them easier to swap out. Have you ever caught yourself reaching for a bad habit without even thinking about it? Well, that's where Fume, the sponsor of today's video, offers a simple and enjoyable way to break away from bad habits while still having something satisfying to reach for by way of flavored air. If you haven't heard about flavored air before, then think of it as herbal tea, as opposed to the sticky soda that is vaping, and Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. It looks awesome and is made to be fidgeted with soothing snaps and clicks, thus filling the void of any bad habit you may want to ditch. Fume has lots of delicious flavors to choose from, like crisp mint. There's no vapor, so you can use it anywhere, and obviously there's no addictive nicotine. On the contrary, Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products, meaning Fume is backed by doctors in the US. With flavored air, you can satisfy your fixation through a passive diffusion system that utilizes no electronics, vapor, or combustion. Fume has served over 500,000 customers, and you can be the next success story. For a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using my code MidnightSedge, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Click the link tryfume.com MidnightSedge, that's tryfum.com, or scan the QR code on screen to get yours today. Thanks to Fume for sponsoring this video, and with that, let's return to Marvel Studios' journey to the dark side, beginning with the evidence that the transformation is complete. Beau DeMaio, the showrunner of the well-received X-Men '97, who was fired and publicly tarred and feathered by Marvel for being difficult to work with, which many took to mean he didn't make his X-Men quite gay enough for Marvel's contemporary tastes, continues to be a thorn in Marvel and Kevin Feige's side by exposing behind-the-scenes matters that the powers that be would rather remain behind the scenes, because when exposed to the public, it makes them look really, really bad. DeMaio recently let it rip on X, and his exposé was compiled by a number of outlets like Cosmic Book News, who begin their write-up with, "Former X-Men '97 showrunner Beau DeMaio is doubling down on his criticism of Marvel, this time taking aim at the way Marvel Studio runs its creative meetings, and how the process allegedly kills good ideas before they make it to the screen." In a new Twitter thread, DeMaio contrasted Marvel with DC, explaining why he hasn't been as critical of James Gunn's Superman. DeMaio says his opinion comes from first-hand experience. To those asking why I'm not so hard on Superman, the answer is I've never worked with Gunn or DC. Like Matt Shakman and the writers of Fantastic Four, I've sat in the creative meetings at Marvel Studios. They're horrible. He claims the process revolves around Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige and co-president Louis D'Esposito steering pitches toward their own rushed ideas. You basically sit in a room with Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito and try to pitch your movie while also realizing that Kevin just wants you to dictate his rushed thoughts. Here, I would like to chime in that that's really bad, because it means Kevin Feige isn't really interested in any original idea the creatives might have, because he already has his own ideas, and that's what he wants reflected back to him, but presumably more fleshed out, yet fleshed out in the manner that Kevin Feige wants to have it fleshed out. Now, given that Feige in a sense is the showrunner of the MCU, it kind of has to be that way, with the showrunner deciding the ultimate direction they're going in. But the way DeMaio phrases this, it doesn't seem like Feige is willing to hear out other ideas, which may be why it's been many years since we saw a filmmaker with an actual voice take on anything in the MCU. For the most part, it's been inexperienced novices given productions of a scale they weren't ready for. But their inexperience also means that they're less likely to challenge anything Feige wants to do, no matter how stale and predictable it may be. But let's continue the exposé. DeMaio adds that former Marvel executive Victoria Alonso, who was also fired, would sometimes try to lift the mood. In one of my Blade meetings, she just showed up with sugar cookies she'd bake to help improve morale. As nice as that may seem, from everything we've heard and reported in the past, she was very much so part of the problem as well. Reportedly a proud member of the Alphabet community, and by all accounts a true believer when it comes to activism. WDW Pro's sources has credited her with the mantle strategy, that is, the belief that the hero's appeal really is the gear and not the character who operates it. So if you take away Tony Stark's Iron Man armor and give it to Riri from the Hood, who wants to be iconic, the audience will respond to her every bit as much as they did Tony Stark, because she's Iron Man now, and the same applies to every other gender and palette swapped character, except it didn't really work out that way. Of course, the gender-swapped Silver Surfette only goes to show that even with Victoria Alonso no longer in the building, that is a habit Marvel still needs to break. And on that note, remember, you can use Fume to help you break yours. But let's continue here, because this is where it gets really bad. Remember, the whole reason to be excited for Marvel Studios in the first place was that unlike the other studios doing Marvel adaptations back in the day, Marvel Studios were going to honor the source material in a whole new way, and a very big part of their massive success in their first decade was that by and large they did just that. But this is where they've done a 180 and become like their rivals used to be. The write-up continues. According to DeMaio, comic book references are discouraged. You're even told not to try to pitch ideas from the comics, because Lou isn't a big comic book guy and it'll turn him off. That would be Lou Desposito, and if this indeed is accurate, he needs to be let go, because whatever good he at some point may have contributed is clearly in the past. Instead, DeMaio says the focus is reduced to a vague formula. You sit and talk about craft and story and characters, only to have Kevin and Lou say, yeah, well, all we need is to make sure it's fun. That would be the MCU humor right there, which, if it doesn't have Ryan Reynolds behind it, has long since gone stale and become predictable. DeMaio describes the result as a factory process that strips away creativity. Marvel is a slaughterhouse factory where you watch fresh meat get spoiled as it slowly makes its way through the assembly gears of mediocre thinking and this weird hatred for their own product. In other words, Kevin Feige has become what Tom Rothman used to be at Fox. And for new viewers who don't remember him, he was the one who ordered Galactus be a fart cloud in Rise of the Silver Surfer because he didn't think the audience would accept a giant robot. He was the one who ordered Deadpool's mouth be soon shut in Wolverine Origins, and he personally blocked the real Deadpool movie for the rest of his tenure at Fox. Ironically, he later made Sony great again, and he's since learned the error of his ways and came to understand that when it came to comic book movies, his instincts simply didn't work. So instead, he learned to trust others who were more attuned to them and their audience, which certainly helped Spider-Man No Way Home. It is ironic then that Kevin Feige has gone full Tom Rothman, hating not just the comics, but their creators as well. DeMaio says this attitude extends to the comic book writers who created the characters. There's no spark, there's no vision. Marvel is a slaughterhouse factory where you watch fresh meat get spoiled as it slowly makes its way through the assembly gears of mediocre thinking and this weird hatred of their own product. This is why Robert Liefeld isn't just some bitter old man. Talking about the comic book writers is met with open contempt. I had to fight to get the Leewalds involved on X-Men 97, and even then the dismissive news with which Diana Vasquez Eberhardt spoke about them. Basically telling me the OG creators were meant to be seen and not heard to appease the fans. I wanted to co-write an episode with them, and that was Dana's response. Yeah, that's pretty bad, and here it's worth mentioning that Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld was never a fan of Tom Rothman, but he has it in for Kevin Feige in a way he never did for Rothman, and to me, that is truly remarkable. Jumping forward a bit, DeMaio concludes, "It's a broken machine, so I can see where Matt Shakman and his team probably had great ideas, only for Marvel's arrogance to destroy them." There is another great quote from a DC movie that comes to mind here. "You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." That is what has become of Marvel Studios. They are now what they were created to oppose. Question is a redemption arc still possible for Marvel Studios, or is the company, under its current leadership, too far gone? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. And before you go, remember that for a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using my code Midnight's Edge, you'll get a free Fume topper, an awesome accessory to level up your experience. Click the link tryfume.com/midnightsedge, that's tryfum.com, or scan the QR code on screen to get yours today.